Hello again. This is David Lasher from Keen 360, our no-code CRM leader at our firm. And this is the final session of Creatio Bootcamp. The previous sessions have been about how to configure the platform and deliver a solution for your customers, whomever they might be, internal or external. Today's session is different. Today's session is about how to get certification as a Creatio Analyst. At Keen 360, we find that the analyst certification is a very nicely run program by Creatio. It is a demanding certification to obtain, and once obtained, it is a genuine indicator of possession of skills to be able to maintain and extend any Creatio solution or instance. So what we have teed up today is that I'm going to be doing most of the work, the walkthrough, but my colleagues on our no-code team, Kevin, who's been giving our instruction, and some of our other Keen 360 team members, especially at the end, we're going to talk about our own experiences with obtaining certification and share our tips and tricks for getting that certification. All right. With no further ado, let me turn on my monitor over here, which is going to give me overexposed face, and go into the sharing. The mouse on my workstation is laggy, and we might see that a bit. And that's because I have an old workstation here. There we go. I was pressing the mouse and it was clicking on the wrong things, and still is. So this is probably the trickiest part of the presentation. Now, looks like everybody can see Creatio's online homepage, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Here. So what I wanted to start with, as we talk about obtaining certification, is some basics of Creatio, some basics of CRM, move into the pricing, which you might not need to know to configure a solution, but you definitely need to know in order to obtain certification. I'm going to show you some resources for learning the basics about the Creatio platform technologies. There's a web page that collects some good information together, and it's worthy of your visit. And then we're going to go through the certification itself. We're going to visit the Academy page at Creatio, show you what's there, where we think some of the best materials are, and then again, we'll conclude with our tips and tricks for getting that formal certification. So Creatio homepage, it's a website homepage. There is a lot of good material here. What I want to point out is that if you go to the top menu, some of what I find most useful is over here under the Discover column. The technology page that we're going to look at is this one. The pricing you can see right here. If you do get questions about support, and you might during certification, Creatio offers 3 support plans that I think we will go through just so folks are familiar, and in case they get the question, that information is here. And what I wanted to point out is that if you didn't know, CRM, customer relationship management, in the public sector, sometimes called constituent relationship management, typically consists of 3 main modules: marketing, sales, and service. Right? And Creatio customers can buy 1, 2, 3, or even none of these, because you don't necessarily need to buy the Creatio CRM applications to build robust enterprise caliber solutions. You can buy just the studio and configure for yourself. And then also important to know, questions do arise, is that there's the Creatio marketplace where you can get pre-configured solutions like the connectors that I think Kevin went through in one of the previous sessions. Okay. If you're thinking that knowing that you don't necessarily need to buy the CRM applications is in order to build a solution is something you wouldn't need to know for certification, you would be wrong. There are some trick questions, some tricky questions that Creatio will ask during certification, where the answers are, well, even though I'm taking certification for CRM, to build the solution that we're talking to, and this would be you talking to the proctor of the exam, the assessment, it is not necessarily the case that you need these applications. You can just you can build solutions with Studio alone. Okay. So that's some good materials, some of the main materials that are easily accessible from the main menu of the Creatio homepage. Let's use the pricing page, which and the pricing model you do need to know in order to talk about how a Creatio solution comes together. So the first element, the foundational element of a Creatio platform is the platform itself, right? And this model, this licensing model for Creatio of buying the platform and then adding the CRM products, as we see here, is new as of July 2023. The theory behind this new composable pricing model, as Creatio calls it, is that it gives you the freedom to choose precisely the products and capabilities from Creatio that you need for your organization and your solutions, right? So the platform comes in a free version that's not indicated here. The free version is rather limited. I think folks, but unlike a trial instance, which we did cover how to get a trial instance, Kevin, during the course of the boot camp.
Yes, we did.
Unlike a trial instance, the free instance will not be sunset after 2 weeks for you. So it's limited, but it's persistent. So potentially useful. The growth platform, here we can do some comparisons. You can see that it's about half the price of Enterprise, which is about 2/3 the price of Unlimited. And in general, growth for getting started is a good choice. Enterprise for growing in and having more capabilities. What are those capabilities? They are what you see here. The differences are not so much in the tools that are available to you, okay? Even though with the growth package, it bears mention, and it does cause teeth gnashing in organizations I've worked with that are assessing these plans. You don't get to put your own logo and your own colors into Creatio under the growth plan at present. I would chide Creatio on that omission. I think that if you're paying for the platform, you should be able to put your logo in. It doesn't drive any cost for Creatio itself. Moving past that editorial statement, the big differences in the platform are in how much storage and transactional capacity you get. Everybody can read here and figure it out. I think one of the keys for organizations doing their compare and contrast is to notice the differences in storage. So under growth, let's say that you had 20 licenses, you would get 20 gigs of data for database data and storage, and 20 gigs for attachments like PDFs that were uploaded into the system. The data is stored, so it would be 20 gigs plus 20 gigs. And if you exceed that limit in a given year, you can buy extra gigs. The extra gigs, I think, come at $20 per gigabyte per year. And that's very expensive. If storage like that is available as cheaply as 25 cents per gigabyte per year from AWS, what they call their S3, Simple Storage Solution Services. And so the implication here for anybody assessing and leveraging Creatio, the implication is that there's nothing wrong with this, but it makes it so that a storage strategy for organizations that are going to be collecting a lot of submissions, maybe for permitting solutions. Those submissions have PDFs. That's going to consume the available storage rather quickly. And so you need to look at solutions like leveraging SharePoint or a network drive or Box.com or AWS S3. All very feasible. None of it difficult to make none of it difficult integration with Creatio. None of it making for a non-seamless experience for end users, right? But my message here is that for Creatio, due to these limits, planning and strategy needs to be decided for storage. Unless you're going with unlimited package in which the storage constraints are lifted. For those implementing, if unlimited, Creatio will pay for implementation services. Processing, you can see here, 10K per day might seem a lot, but it can pinch especially if you've got integrations processing a lot of records. This is important that with the growth, how many instances you have available to you for managing, how many environments you have for your instance and your subscription. 2 is not a lot. It allows you to have a stage in your production. 3, I think, is nice. In unlimited, of course, gives you maximum freedom and flexibility. This is interesting that with the unlimited URLs, access to Creatio is usually yourorganization.creatio.com. Some organizations, especially if they're exposing a portal to their own customers, a portal that's going to be powered by Creatio, they're going to want their own domain name, and that's entirely feasible with the unlimited program. And then there are some differences in security, retention of logs. By the way, you could always write for logs, you could always write an automation with the no-code tools to save these logs longer than these limits if you want to do so for your organization. It is very important to note for cybersecurity that Creatio is SOC 2 and ISO 27001 compliant. That is relevant for many organizations that you might talk to. HIPAA is for protecting personal health information in the US. And then there are other extras that are available as you buy into the more generous but more expensive plans. Okay. Key is to know that customers have a choice of support plans, and questions like what support plans are available are part of certification. Why is that? For analyst certification, what Creatio's proper theory is that an analyst needs to be able to engage in a conversation with somebody, a decision maker within their own organization or another organization, as to how best to use this platform to solve problems that they have and achieve objectives that they're carrying. Okay. And deciding the support plan is part of that. Let's look a little bit more at the pricing, as is the pricing. So if we pick a plan, I'm going to pick enterprise. We begin to see the calculations are in the right-hand panel here. And you can maybe tell that my mouse is laggy as it jumps around. And then you choose your products. And with sales and with service, you pick your number of users, and it's $15 per user per month, right? Prices of sales, there used to be 2 categories, but it used to be just one lump sum for either enterprise or I'm going to call it SMB level. There was another name for it, but it was really enterprise versus SMB, team level or departmental level options. But now it's buy the platform and add the products. Methods over here. And if you weren't aware, pricing for most all, maybe every single one, cloud-based so-called SaaS application, SaaS as services, software as a service. The discussions are usually per user per month and per user per year. Well, the latter being 12 times the former, of course. Right. So here you have the numbers. Marketing is different, and you do need to know this. Marketing is not just how many seat licenses you need for your marketing analyst or professionals. It's how many emails you're going to send. All marketing automation applications are like this. They have this pricing model. And so as a Creatio analyst and advisor, what you need to be asking anybody who might be adopting marketing is, how many folks do you have in marketing that are going to be generating the newsletters that you might send out, the digital promotional materials that you might be sending out, the webinars that you might want to be advertising and driving participation and sending thanks for? All of that is handled by marketing, but you need to know how many professionals, and usually you don't need very many, you don't have very many marketing analysts, but you do usually have a lot of emails that you're sending out. And a little trick here is that this can kind of get confusing, contacts and contacts per year. You really want to just ask how many emails are going to be sent per year, and choose a combination of this item and this item, so that when multiplied together, they get to that annual number, and you will be fine in the end with the licensing model. Further discussion, further detail. There's not just one type of user for the platform, right? You know, the core user that we've been talking about so far. There are additional user types, as we see here, special user types. So what are they? What we're looking at here is really pretty exciting. It is brand new as of October, November 2023. And Creatio needs to be complemented on listening and adjusting to get their licensing model to where it needs to be for the people who want to build solutions with their platform. And so what do we have here? I'm going to open up each one. And this, because of my laggy mouse, actually isn't easy to click on things. So a limited internal user. Sounds like a lot of jargon. What is this? People can read, and I'll do this while I talk, and I'll scroll down. Those watching the video can, of course, pause the video once it's released. But limited internal users are people who need access to what Creatio calls one section. We all should know a section might be it might be invoices, it might be opportunities, it might be marketing campaigns. Not a great example, but theoretically possible. It is one object or section within the system, and your internal people can have full access to that section. Okay, who needs that? The people that need that are people who are typically relatively senior in your organization, and they are reviewers and approvers. And they need to be able to come in and see what they're reviewing and approving in full context, full data context of that which they're looking at and being asked to approve. Okay, so this is, and you can see here, the use case, the example is an approver, right? At $144 per user per year, this is fantastic value for the capabilities provided. I expect to see, for existing and future adopters of the Creatio platform, this license to be well appreciated and well adopted. What's next? Mobile only. So in many organizations, there are sets of people that work out in the field, exclusively out in the field. And they don't sit at a desk with a workstation, laptop, or alternative. They're using a laptop, or better yet, a tablet, maybe their phone, but much more likely a tablet to do their work in the field. So this is usually field service repair, break fix repair, people who are getting technicians who are getting dispatched by a call center to go fix something that's broken, a utility line, for example. Okay. A water pipe that is broken under a street for a municipal setting, or in a home for a consumer setting. So the person dispatched the mobile device, if all they're using is the mobile device, then $144 per user per year. Why is this such a value for organizations adopting? Because then for your mobile users, they're not burdened with these baseline costs for the platform itself. The users in the call center, the service agents, they would be using, they're the core users. They would have the platform licenses and the service licenses, and maybe add-on marketplace add-on licenses as well, but not the mobile users. What else do we have here? We have two types of portal users, and actually there's a third that's not depicted that we'll mention. External B2B user. This is a user, again, at $144 per user per year. I should hover again. These are users who are outside your organization. They are users from organizations with whom folks in your own organization are collaborating. A research collaboration portal is a great example of a use case for this license, right? Your organization might be a research consortium sponsoring projects, soliciting funding, obtaining funding, running projects, and you work with other organizations. That arm-in-arm collaboration requires the flexibility and data sharing that is available with these B2B, business to business licenses. So if you're an organization like Creatio that has partners like Keen 360 for selling and implementing your software, a partner portal would be another great example. And a third would be organizations that are selling, that have products and services that they offer to businesses and governments. So they're doing B2B and B2G selling. And the onboarding process is complex. The solution being offered and bought is complex. Onboarding might take weeks and months. In that case, an onboarding portal can be very valuable. Now, the B2C portal. The fourth of the 5 additional licenses, only 4 of which are depicted on the website. B2C portal, business to consumer. This is when the individual who is with whom your organization is working has limited interaction needs with your organization. They need to create an account, right? A user account and profile. And typically they need to make submissions and check on status and engage in communications. Examples would be I think of higher ed and a student application portal for the intake of those applications and the back and forth with the prospective student. That process is very arm in arm, but it's also the educational institution dealing with one and only one person, right? So B2C portal. Think of a learning portal. Keen 360 offers a learning portal that's powered by Creatio. Learning portals you might want to offer your learning assets and your certification programs to individuals who are outside your organization, your customers, or you might offer your learning materials on a paid basis, right? So to any kind of learner, but you might also, this is brand new from Creatio, you might also, for the students or for the non-student learners, you might have people in your own organization who need access to that material. And one of the really nice features of the B2C portal license that Creatio needs to be commended upon is that your internal learners can access with this license as well, okay? You'll notice it's not per user per month. That's because the B2C portal is in tiers or tranches or blocks up to 10,000 at a price of something like $20,000 per user per year. Then the next block is something like 50,000. Then the next block is 100,000. And well, and so I suppose I could click on this and we could all see what the actual numbers are. I wasn't that far off. I think this one is relatively new. 1,000. Relatively new even in the last couple of weeks. So those are some of the 4 of the 5 models for additional user types. On the portals, the other additional type, the other portal type is self-service portal. So if you're running an IT help desk is the classic example, your call center agents will be taking requests, inquiries, and processing them and responding appropriately. Those agents will be using the Creatio platform, the Service Creatio module from CRM, and the organization will have the self-service portal as well. What's the price? Up to a certain level, it's free. If you have X number of service licenses, then you have an entitlement from Creatio for 100X self-service portal licenses. Another use case besides a help desk is that Keen 360 has a client, City of Pittsburgh, that is using the self-service portal to take in from the community, right, from the citizens of Pittsburgh, potential incidents that are violations of human relations and human rights. So that's an example where the self-service portal can come in. You have an intake process, and then your professionals are assessing and reacting to that which is received. So the last thing to say about pricing is that there's always marketplace. And we saw marketplace in context of connectors or integrations that are available. And there are all kinds of other products that are available, utilities and products we can see from Keen 360. We have knowledge and experience and a product powered by Creatio for life sciences, pharmaceutical companies, medical device companies, biotech companies. And so where's the pricing for these kinds of products? Let's look at one for configure price quote. If I click on it, there's always a write-up, there's always a pricing page, and we see this one is $500 US per year. Okay. Now, before getting to Academy and certification itself, I did want to point out this page because it's a great resource from Creatio. This that we found by going to products and technologies, right? It is a jump point to about half a dozen different pages that you can see here on different technology related questions, but these are not very technology deep kinds of explanations. You know, what are the technologies? What is the architecture? any business analyst, any certified analyst for any platform ought to know the level of the kinds of technology answers, materials, knowledge that are presented on these pages. Some of this what are the different no-code tools we know about already, right? The design, the workflow designer, the dynamic case designer, add-ons. But I wanted to point out security at all levels section here. It is important to know, again, the reasons that any adopter of the Creatio platform ought to have great confidence that this is a secure and reliable platform. Now, reliability comes not from what we're looking at here, but from the architecture to be able to scale in response to loads and recover in response to problems and outages. Right? So this is FYI and highly recommended for review. Now we're in the home stretch. Academy. Creatio really does make a great array of high quality materials available at Academy. Materials are organized into the documentation, the training courses that are available, and then the certification program itself. So schedule is usually here, new releases and bulletins. The schedule of upcoming training for signing up is here and works just as you would expect it to work. Different types of courses, different types, e-learning, self-guided, free, guided with an instructor, online with an instructor for a fee, right? And then maybe for very large organizations, customized on-site training or bespoke training. And this is good. There's a YouTube channel, and there are regular updates. Well, and there's a regular release, I guess, every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, US. But these tech talks are on specific deeper dive kinds of topics or new release kinds of topics. Documentation, it's worth a few words that there is general, there is materials that is more relevant for analysts, which we're looking at here, right? And then there's the deeper dive material for advanced configurators / no-code developers. Remember, Creatio no-code platform isn't no-code only, it's no-code first and no-code most of the time. But to the degree that maybe .NET scripts need to be written to perform some kind of work, usually in context of an integration, those kinds of scripts can be implemented. If scripts need to be implemented in another language, usually those packages are called from Creatio via an API. There's a little bit of communication. The outside script or service does its work and returns the answers back to the result sets back to Creatio. Right? Good to know that Creatio does a very nice job of saying, documenting all the releases and providing information on how you update or upgrade your environment. I don't even know what's here. And so just some system requirements calculator. This actually is a nice tool. If you're self-hosting, it's important instead of cloud hosting. But there are also for IT teams where sizing might be required, might be needed, that calculator. The Knowledge Hub, this is relatively new. I'm not actually very familiar with it. Let me just ask Kevin if you're familiar with these resources here.
I haven't seen it too much.
Okay, so I would say this is new as of summer, fall 2023, and surely worth exploring. But what I wanted to get back to was the training itself. And I wanted to emphasize before we wrap up with the certification, the courses that we at Keen 360 think are very good. And it's all of these self-learning courses, the e-learning track. And these offerings, I think you need to create your own account because your progress is going to be tracked. You create your account, you enroll, and I'm not logged in right now, but you enroll, and then you get a mix of videos and reading material and pop quizzes. And the pop quizzes for each one of these modules prepares you for the multiple choice questions that are a key part and maybe the hardest part of certification. So highly encouraged to take most all, if not every single one of these e-learning courses. I myself found these courses to be my best tool for achieving certification some little while ago. Okay. Now on to certification itself. So you sign up, you register, you get scheduled. But as you do so, one thing to know is you can and should, here's the registration, you can and should take these self-certifications, these self-assessments. This is to fail to undertake the self-assessments is to set yourself up for failure in the actual certification. And for the certification, we want to set your expectations and share some tips and tricks. For setting the expectations, the things to know are that certification consists of actually more than two parts unless certification has changed. It is not just what we see here, a practical assignment. I call this a homework assignment that you have 1 week to do, and a multiple choice test. And unless the program has changed, there is also at the end a Q&A where your proctor poses 3 questions of a type that is normal for someone to ask of a business analyst, configuration analyst for Creatio or any platform. Right? And so what you need to be ready for is passing the multiple choice, performing the practical assignment, which will get rated by your proctor. Then if you pass, you will transition into the multiple choice test. And then if you pass that, and there's a threshold of something like 85% that you need to score, then you will get the open-ended questions, of which there have typically been 3, at least in the past. Recertification, I believe, is every 2 years. And what we would like to do is help you by understanding what you need to know in order to be successful with the practical assignment and the multiple choice and the open-ended questions. For the practical assignment, and I'll ask my Keen 360 colleagues to add their tips and tricks. For the practical assignment, you receive a write-up 7 days before your scheduled exam. You can devote as much time as you would like in that 7 days to completing the assignment. It usually has, Kevin, half a dozen scenarios that Creatio presents to you. And within a trial instance that you need to spin up, you need to configure your solution. Okay? And when you enter into your scheduled exam itself, the first thing that you will do is go through your solution that you have configured. And here's what you need to know. There is no one treatment, one way to configure uh, a solution in response to the exam or any set of requirements, right? So the critically important part of the practical assignment is that you have a configuration that you can explain to the proctor. If you can explain why you did what you did, you will surely get 100% of your points or very close there too. Now, your solution has to work in one way or another. But assuming that you got that far, if you can explain it, you will get credit for it. That what you're asked to do requires the skills that Kevin has gone through over the previous 7 sessions. The content of this boot camp has been selected on basis of developing the skills, showing the skills that are needed to pass the practical exam for certification. And the reason that that is a good thing is that the skills that you need to pass this well-designed certification program, as I mentioned earlier, are the skills that you really do need to have to create, maintain, and extend a Creatio solution. Now for the practical exam, let me ask my Keen 360 colleagues who are certified analysts, have been through the exam, anything that you would add to what I said about the practical exam, the homework assignment, as I like to call it? Kevin?
I think definitely I would reiterate on you have to fit what's listed in the step. Like for a scenario, there'll be like maybe like 5 or 6 bits underneath that you have to do. And say it's building a folder, it'll say like, I don't want to see cases that are, or the filter should show cases that are open. And as long as you fit that requirement, and you can explain how you fit that requirement and show that you fit that requirement, they're okay with, like, they'll be okay with that. I'd say definitely highly recommend practicing before you even request the practical assignment, because it's doable in a week. It's not something you can leave until the night before to do it. So you should definitely get the reps in before you request it. They don't try to really like trick you in the requirements. It's not just make a page and vague nebulous requirements about it, but there's a lot of steps in it that'll go through building pages, business rules, adding fields, validation on the fields, dynamic cases, business processes. Like, yeah, you don't really want to go into it and be learning from scratch during that week.
Yeah, Kevin, that triggered a thought, which is when you receive your assignment, you should not expect it to be easy. There will be some parts of it that are challenging, right? But the other thing that you should realize is that some of it will be not easy to interpret. And why is that? Well, the reality is that the questions are drafted by non-native English speakers, Ukrainian, and they tend to have relatively technical backgrounds, engineering backgrounds, instead of maybe more business-oriented tracked backgrounds. They're not professional instructors and writers of textbooks, right? And so some of the questions, especially if they happen to be relatively newer ones that haven't been issued, for some months and gone through the improvement process, they can be difficult to interpret. So what do you need to do? You need to make your interpretation and be able to explain your interpretation, and that'll be fine. Any other comments on the practical exam, the homework assignment?
I would just like to add that there are multiple ways of doing things. For example, when I did it, when it comes to like auto numbering, there were like 2 or 3 different ways that we can do that. So it's not always one way. So just be mindful of that.
That's
But
a good
as
example.
long as you can explain it.
That's a good example, which is, anytime a new invoice opportunity is created, it's going to have its human readable, human referenceable number on it. And in general, you're going to have some kind of indicator, some kind of separator, some kind of number. How you come about that, there's probably at least a dozen different ways to do it. And as Mark just said, the key is just to be able to explain how you arrived at your treatment. Okay, on to the multiple choice test. It is challenging, and the only way to prepare for it is by doing the self-assessments and going through the self-learning courses, the e-learning courses, and getting used to the way the questions are asked and how the answers are presented. I find in certification that the multiple choice questions are, that segment is the most difficult segment, because you just as because even though it's normal for there to be many ways to configure to a requirement, a specification, like you get in the practical assignment, it is not really the norm that in a multiple choice test, the different options that are available for the answer are open to interpretation. And our finding over the last few years, and it may be changing, is that usually in the exam that has about 25, 28 questions, is that correct? Something.
Yeah.
It's got between 25 and 30, as you can see from our memories. Typically, I would say there are a few, 3, that the answers really, the answers provided really don't seem to be the right answer for the question. And what do you do in that situation? You embrace the fact that your proctor is there not just to make sure that you're not cheating, but to help you, right? So your proctor is there to answer any question, any reasonable questions that you have. If something is in your mind open to interpretation, you should say so to your proctor and enlist your proctor in getting an understanding of what the question is asking for and what the available answers might be implying. Okay. Proctor is not going to give you the answer, of course, but the proctors will respond to questions that are authentic and legitimate. Right. So use your proctor to help you to get clarity on points of confusion for the multiple choice questions in particular. Another thing to know about the multiple choice questions is that some of them, there's always 1 or 2 that don't seem like they should be for an analyst. They seem like they should be more for a technical developer. They are questions like, what is the Redis server and its purpose? What is the version control server and its purpose?
Yep.
I have never once in 4+ years had a client ask me anything about the Redis server, but for certification, it's something you need to know. Right? I would suggest that if those kinds of questions are still being asked for analyst certification by Creatio, they should no longer be. Right? But the reality is you're going to need to know these things if you're taking these some of these technical questions and answers as you take the exam. And that's why we're going through some of those web pages earlier. Anything else, Kevin, first? Anything on the multiple choice that you would...
I would just add that there's a big bank of those questions, and some of them actually, at least unless they've made changes to the bank, do show up in the self-assessment test that we're looking at on the screen. And even if you don't see them in there, they are very much written by the same people, and so you should go through those questions to really get an idea of like how the questions are worded, some of the questions that they can ask, because some of them will be multiple choice of is A, B, C, or D correct. Some of them are like pick all of the ones below that are true. Like I think one of the ones was like, what is out of the box, like what out of the box integrations are available in Creatio ready to go on like first setup, and you have to go down a list of like 8 or 10 options, be like that one is, that one's not, and pick those, and just like go through the practice test, and it should at the end give you a summary of, it won't give you the answers when you're done, but it'll give you scores on subjects to say like you did good on page configuration, but your business rules are lacking. And so you can get those areas to go back and be like, well, I need to look into that more.
Thank you. Any other comments from the Keen 360 team on the multiple choice test? No, I'd point out, probably should have mentioned it earlier, you can take different types of tests, and you do pick which of the CRM modules. One of the other unexpected aspects of certification is that even if you pick sales or service, you are not, it is not just possible, but it is likely that you will get a couple of questions about marketing. It's just the nature of the beast. That would probably be an area of improvement for Creatio, but until that improvement comes or refinement comes, you do need to not be surprised to get, say, a marketing question, even if you're going for sales or service certification. And of course, you'll probably want to take basic, sign up for basic. So this is how the tests look. And folks can read it. I would say another thing just came to mind that I didn't know the first time I took the test is because you have a proctor, you do need to have your webcam going. That's very normal these days, but do know that you only have 60 minutes to get through the whole exam. So there is a little, you do have to keep pace, and you do need to be visible. That's of course, that's for making sure cheating doesn't occur. And you should avoid what I one time did, which I didn't know about the webcam and lost 10 minutes of my allotted time just fiddling to get set up. So go into the exam well prepared is the message. All right. The last thing that you'll be asked, if they're still doing it, is open-ended questions. There's typically 3 of them, and they're the kinds of questions that a business analyst would get, as I've said a handful of times now. Questions will be in the nature of revealing that you know the differences between the modules, marketing, sales, and service, that you understand differences between some of the licensing options, right? That you understand when a dynamic case might be better than a workflow designer automation. Questions can tilt into some areas that are inherently gray. In other words, there is no one right or wrong answer. The classic is, what's the difference between a lead and an opportunity? How do you know the difference between a lead and an opportunity? And if you didn't know the answer, the answer is there's a spectrum and there's a gray area of overlap, and the important thing is that any organization make due effort to define what is a lead and what the criteria for conversion to an opportunity is, and to be comfortable with the fact that there's a little bit of uncertainty in that transition period. Right? If you can explain dynamics like that, you'll get full credit for your narrative answers. Kevin and others from the Keen 360 team, what else would you say about the narrative question answers that you have to give at the end?
I wouldn't say too much. It very much is the like giving you a scenario on like an organization. Like it varies depending on the test around. But I think I got one that was about like a nonprofit, and they're really looking for you to ask those questions of oh well, do they do marketing? Do they have any kind of service functionality? If so, like what? And kind of have you like work through the use case and asking those questions that help you to determine, oh, well, do they have service? If they do have service, what kind of service? Do they need like help desk service that does like configuration items with like managing routers and laptops? Probably not. Okay, well then they just need like a help desk that they can manage cases, and using that kind of information to be able to say, well, in that case, I would say they need service Creatio, they need this other thing, and then maybe we could talk about building some additional sections for these other workflows. And really, as a way to practice, I would recommend just picking a business that you know, like maybe something around the corner, a place that you go a lot, and just try to work through what you see them doing and what their workflow is. And it would be good practice on. It was like, oh well, they sell this they do B2C sales in person in their store or online, and kind of work through their use case.
Yeah, another example would be you figure out, it's a sales team. It's going to be recipient of the solution powered by Creatio. Well, how many sales reps are there? Are they working from home or in front of a computer most of the time? Or are they going to be going into customer environments where they're going to need their tablet, right, for mobility? Maybe show a presentation on the tablet. Well, if that's the case, they're not going to be lugging around a laptop, then they're going to need the mobile app. And you need to be able to show that kind of thought process that I just went through, that Kevin went through, in your responses to the narrative answers. I see Michael wanted to share something.
Yes, a lot of times, especially in those open-ended questions, they may ask you something revolving around when to reach out to support and under what circumstances. They may give you a scenario where your client reaches out to you saying they cannot connect to your instance. And the important thing is to, again, go through that thought process of, okay, what did they check their internet? Did they check their connection? And then have them reach out to support and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Really, what Creatio is trying to do is show that you can be an advisor to someone who is trying to figure out how to use Creatio. Right? That's what they're trying to do with this certification and with the narrative answers in particular. All right. We are at end of hour and end of the lessons and tips that we wanted to share for pursuing Creatio Analyst certification. I would add just one last thing, and that is to fail the certification test on initial attempts is normal. So you should expect it, and you should take lessons as to where you need to improve your knowledge and just your test taking abilities for the certification. I believe that any person who is taking the examination has 6 or 8 different attempts that they can make. I don't know if it's still quite that many, but Creatio recognizes that this is not easy. They're not looking to fail anybody. They just want you to make sure that you have a certain level of knowledge and skill. Right? And so you can take a bite at the apple as several times at a minimum. Okay. With that, we hope that you've learned a lot from Kevin in particular during the boot camp for your configuration skills and your administration skills. And for those who might be pursuing certification, we hope that this session has been informative and helpful for that objective. With that, we bring Keen 360's Creatio Bootcamp 2023 to a close. Thank you.